Sheikh Mansour has been to one City game in the last however many years, was it 13 years? And apparently, whenever City win a cup, he celebrates with his mates by having a huge cake made, not in the shape of a cup or anything, but just a huge cake, because obviously they don't drink.
Just a cake.
Just a big cake, and that's how they celebrate. That's how they associate themselves with football. It is just a plaything for the mega rich, and but of course the ecosystem of football just gets completely ruined by it. In the same way that when Abramovich first came into Chelsea, he pushed all the transfer fees and wages up, and people just couldn't compete until more money came in from Sky, and then they pushed it up even further. And this is going to happen again, and it's not good because it's just going to put more clubs in debt.
Well, and you take, I mean, let's talk from our own perspective, I suppose, which is we've got an owner and a board of directors who have kind of got it in their heads what they think they need to compete, and have indebted the club to the tune of, I don't know, whatever the number is. Lee, you're close. You have a better grip on the numbers. Hundreds of millions, and before we even really get off the starting blocks, being this is hopefully a first full season where we can have multiple non-football events.
Yes,
and actually start to make the machine work. Basically the middle rungs have been kicked off the ladder, and all of a sudden it's like, well, that was nice, but now we've got to work twice as hard to do half as much type thing. So if that's difficult for us, being a top six club in Sky's language, how is that even going to be possible for some of the babies at the other end of the table? Never mind the Championship and those below.
No, absolutely.
The winners will be the ENIC outlook, though, because this will just add fuel to their fire, because they'll be saying, "Oh, this is more proof that he doesn't want to spend." And because I wonder if with that in mind, and everything's going to be inflated, if our model will increasingly become bringing
under pressure
through from the academy.
That is a good point. I mean, again, going back to, I think you were saying there's kind of different strands to the ENIC out thing. There's half of there's some who are just like Levy and the football side. And then there's the Levy and but we do everything else. We're not a football club anymore. We're a multifaceted entertainment centre or something like that. And squaring that circle is hard. It's going to be even bloody harder now. And to even think that someone else is going to come along and spend the sort of money that Levy the ENIC would want, the sort of, I don't know, somewhere between 2 and 3 billion, let's say.
Yeah.
That's not like spunking $500 million over and buying Newcastle. That's a big deal, and not many people can face that. Not even someone as rich as possibly an Emirati. That's serious money. There's a much shorter list of people that could stomach that, and an organizer that would back it. So for me, it's kind of like, well, okay, if over the next season or two we prove we actually have a money-making machine, then you're more likely to get pension companies involved, then you're more likely to get institutional investors involved, all that sort of thing. You're not dependent on someone who just goes, don't really care if he makes any money or not, because it's just my son to have a mess about with. It actually has to turn a profit, because it actually has to be an investable thing. And then you've got a possibility of a billionaire coming along and saying, I'm prepared to put £250 million down now, but the rest of it I'm going to back out to the markets, and that's the only way that it will happen.
That's probably how they'd raise the money. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, who knows? It's certainly going to change things. That's for sure. So on the LGBT side, Simon, what's the general view? Because I haven't really seen.
Well, the general view is there. There's people that are hopping mad, as you would expect, and who can blame them? It's as I said, I keep putting myself in their position.
Yeah.
because I think it's the only way you can really look at these things and what would happen if it had been us. The Newcastle supporters group had been working with the club, working with a small W, over the course of the last however many months to try and just understand what it means practically and operationally for the club going forward. So based on understanding what it meant for the club operationally going forward, they put out a statement, which wasn't, look, I'm not going to start throwing other supporters groups under the bus. It's not my position to do that. Arguably it wasn't the best written thing. There was lots of kind of inconsistencies and there's things in it which people would raise their eyebrows and go, just because the Saudis have let women drive doesn't make them, open to equal rights type thing. No. They still got, but I just kind of think they're in an impossible situation.
Yeah.
They may well be, deeply upset by what's happening. But at the same time, they want to try and build a relationship, whatever that new board looks like, because they need to make sure that operationally the club stays true to British values in terms of, diversity, equality, inclusion, acceptance, etc. Yeah. And I think that's their core focus. But of course, it's also possible to go, I support my club. It's still my club. I'm going to do the best that I can to make sure that as fans we are still feel comfortable here. Doesn't mean to say you have to like the owners. You can just go, you've personally, every individual's got to find that balance, and as a group they have to come to terms with it or decide to walk away. But they're not going to be able to change it. They have to decide what they're going to do, how close they want to be, and how much influence they honestly think they can have over the club going forward. But you just hope that they've had all those conversations, they've worked it out. But of course, people are unhappy that the fact that a regime like Saudi Arabia has managed to buy, an institutional asset in the UK, and as I said, we might feel the same if it were us. We might feel the same if it wasn't a sporting thing, even if it was a different, a public thing. Let's say they bought, for argument's sake, St Paul's Cathedral. I don't know.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, no, I know. It's just the first thing that pops in my head. Yeah. But it's that kind of thing. Is that when everyone, most people, I might say most people, a lot of people accept that in capitalism and markets in a global world, that foreign organizations have financial interests in other things. It's when at what level are you prepared to accept that they it's part of your community's fabric that's being bought by institutions, organizations, or otherwise that may or may not share the same values as the people that patronize that thing.
I suppose between a rock and a hard place here, aren't they? Really,
it's an impossible situation.
It is, yeah. And if you look at it, like for example, with the difference with a football team is that if let's say you're talking about a clothes brand, if it's a clothes brand that you don't like their ethics of, you buy a different brand.
Exactly.
Music, like Eric Clapton, I'll listen to something else because I don't like his views on things recently.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But with Spurs, I can't change. That's it.
No.
It is really what it is.
Tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's emotional.
It's really tough. So, which is why the question I was very asking the question. Okay, so would you just not renew your season ticket and go and support Haringey United down the road? And the answer was, well, maybe. I don't know. It's you start to then think about the impossible and what do you do? So rightly, a lot of people are upset and a lot of people are worried about what it means. But as it happens, but we also have seen it before. Manchester City have got have had no problems and run a very continued inclusive LGBT sports group. So
no, they do. Yeah.
I think there's just two parts to it. I think there's the shock and awe of going back to the point, which is the industry allowing it to happen, and then it's like sort of like in reality, when it says what does it really mean for the supporters?
Well, this is it. I mean, there's the fit and proper test, but of course that's there really to pick out small-time criminals that don't have any money and go into a club and then push the thing into administration. But I think what the Premier League have done really here is that they've lowered the bar so far here. You've got to ask the question, what's going to happen next? Because can other countries come in now and buy, Crystal Palace or Spurs or whoever? And you're going to end up with, the Premier League owned by different countries. That'd be quite weird.
Well, it sort of is already. So if you go down the list, you got, Emiratis here, even to the point where, United bought by the Glazers, was it 10 or 15 years ago?
Yeah.
And massive outrage around that, almost forgotten about now. You've got Arsenal owned by Kroenke, American, almost forgotten about that.
Yeah.
I mean, apart from, they do go a bit mad, Kroenke out, all this kind of thing. But, you go down the list if you went down the list of Premier League football clubs and their ultimate ownership, I mean, we're not ultimately owned by Brits. We're owned by a guy who lives in the Bahamas.
Yeah, that's right.
How many of the clubs are still owned onshore? Isn't that, there's probably quite a few.
Probably none.
But
maybe Burnley. That's about.
No, I think Palace are. I think
Palace are owned by Steve Parish, and I think it's a Chinese consortium.
Leicester been owned by Thais.
Yeah.
Thais. Years. They love him. So is it to do with foreign ownership, or is it to do with the quality of the ownership? And I think that's the difference. I don't think that we aren't. I've seen people today mocking up Spurs shirts with Tesla on it because they think Elon Musk is a fucking savior and he's going to come along and buy the club and look after us. And oh my God, thank God we're owned by a guy who makes EVs. And it's like, but then somebody pointed out that I think his parents owned like diamond mines in South Africa or something. So where did his money come from? I don't know that's true, but that was something that was posted on.
They'd get behind Jeffrey Epstein if he had the money to buy Spurs, and there is the point, right? And there is the point. If what point is someone's, I suppose, hereditary wealth become problematic? And it's like, there's no good answer to this. I mean,
there's not an easy answer.
Even if Mark Zuckerberg said, "Oh, do you know what? I'll stump up the money," everybody would be like, "No, mate, because you're just spying on us all. Fuck off." There is if it was Jeff Bezos, they'd be like, "Oh my God, no, because you're destroying retail.
Just make us buy stuff."
Who would be an ethical billionaire that people would be happy for our club to be bought by?
I think the Queen of England, actually.
Well,
Prince Andrew, I think would be the right club.
He could be chairman from prison or something. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Should he ever go there? Yeah.
Harry and Meghan, maybe they got a few quid.
He would come across as cool as a cucumber as well.
He could be sponsored by Netflix.
Because Prince Edward, doesn't sweat either, does he? So he'd come across as pretty cool customer.
They don't sweat, these lizards, do they?
We've got a sustainable stadium. Maybe Charles is interested. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
but this is the point. So maybe that's a challenge. Is we should find who is our preferred ethically. You can pass the ethical sniff test. Who's our most with an ethical billionaire to buy us.
We're talking about lizards. What about what the lizard done with the NFL this weekend then? Because there's been some weird takes on that one. And, and I put a tweet out saying that I can't see any downside to this because it's raising our brand, and there've been a few positive thoughts on it, but some people are so invested. And I get it, right? I mean, I do understand why there is some, there's resistance to ENIC, and there are some problematic.
Yeah, I get the resistance to ENIC. I totally get that.
But it's a viewpoint, right? Which is, and almost like we were talking before when we're on a WhatsApp about belief systems.
Yeah.
But it's like that. It's like
Yeah.
If they change their opinion on it, they may even lose their friend circles because they're so heavily invested in the idea that this guy is just trying to stitch us up all the time. And that the brand was not only worldwide, but, of course, one of the big markets that we're going for is the US. You've got key players in Tottenham Hotspur shirts. You've got someone singing the American national anthem in front of the Cockerel. You've got
on the roof.
On the roof, yeah. I mean, this is like really incredible effort to promote our brand. Not even yet, the stadium's not even sponsored, and it's still, because it's now being